Allah. Allah. Salahu bil huda wa din al haq hu ala din kari al mushrikun belongs to Allah. Seek his help, his assistance, and his guidance. I do not disbelieve in him. I bear witness that there is no sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wretched blindness consists of going astray after finding the right way. The best acts are the ones that yield benefits. The best guidance is that which people may be able to follow. The worst blindness is the blindness of the heart. The upper hand is better than the lower one. The best which can meet one's needs is better than the more which can cause neglectfulness. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله. الحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، يقول الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن إبراهيم حنيفا قانتا لله ولم يكن من المشركين. Abraham was indeed a model, devoutly obedient to Allah, and he was true in faith, and he joined not partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is one of our favorite ayats and from the day. Inna Ibrahima kana umatan kanitan lillahi. This means that if we think historically now, at one time, Ibrahim was the ummah. That's what it says. Inna Ibrahima umatan kanitan lillahi. So what does that mean? That means at one time, remember now, Ibrahim was in a society, basically in Iraq, and everybody was worshiping multiplicity of gods. In fact, Ibrahim was like Billy Graham's son. He was the son of the biggest idol maker, right? So all he had to do was duck down, keep his head covered, and keep on peddling falsehood, right? And he would be right up next to the king. He's, the priest, the king, and the landed owners, He was right there in the middle. He was right under the king. He's the one running the whole show as far as ideology is concerned. And it says that he was a ummah. Now, ummah is the word that's used for the whole community, right? It's not used for one person. How can one person be a ummah? But at this time, he was representing the whole ummah by himself. So he was standing alone in a world of polytheism, and he was the only one worshiping the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the way it's meant to be understood. That there was a time in history when, in that part of the world, let's call it Iraq or Babylon at that time, his belief was representing the whole ummah, right? Oh, he was himself representing the whole of truth, Tawheed, the oneness of God. And he's doing it by himself, and at that time, he's a pretty young fella. And you know, when you're young, it's hard to do things different than everybody else. You want to be in the crowd. You don't want to stand out too far by yourself. So he's standing up all by himself, and he doesn't attack just any little idol. He chooses the big one and breaks that. And of course, we all know the story. Everybody's saying, well, who did this to our gods? And we heard this Ibrahim down there talking. Did you do this to our gods? He said, don't ask me, ask him. And now he didn't put the big axe in the biggest god in the little room in his hand. Don't ask me, ask him. Well, you know he can't talk and he can't. You mean, and you're worshiping something that can't talk and can't do nothing, can't do you no good, can't do you no harm, and you bowing down to that? Burn him. Sometime when you bring the truth to people, they may not be predisposed to it, they may not want to hear it. Get rid of that brother. That brother's a troublemaker. That brother is causing fitna in the community. We have to isolate, cut that off, and build some holding capacity around that message or around that person. This is not new. This has always been like this, right? That's why the prophets and messengers, when they come, they bring in the fulfillment of Allah's message, and it might be to people, which it usually is, that don't want to hear that message. They didn't either adopted a plurality of gods, many gods, right? Or they done made up a whole lot of, well, they made them all up, but I mean, they done made up a crew that they happy to worship because they do just what they say. They make their gods and then they worship them because the gods do what they want, you know. And if anything go wrong, why? They have, you know where the word scapegoat come from? Scapegoat comes from in biblical scripture. The Jews at that time used to have a ritual. They would go get a goat and they would pray all the sins in the community in that goat, and then they would run the goat out of the tribe. That's what they did. You know, they was always up to something. And this is pretty slick when you think about it. If there's sin, if there's corruption, and all that going on in the society, well, they had a built-in, you know, so they would pray all the sins out of everything. It's a collective thing, and then they would pray them into the goat. And then they would run the goat out of town. It's called a scapegoat. That's where it come from. So they was always up to something, although in reality you can't do that. But this is what they made up, right? If people can make up gods, they can make up a ritual to go along with the God. They hook it up what they want. You know, if people want to worship the multiplicity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, well, you might also add in there things that very beneficial, you know, that if you do certain things, hey, John 3:16, God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, whosoever believes in him will have everlasting life. Isn't that right? So all you got to do is believe the scene and you're on the road. It's not necessary for you to do a lot of good regularly, normally. Why? Because you didn't accept it, right? Something that you made up. That's when the Quran is talking about they fashion and they form images and then they worship them images. We don't want to be like that. Now, Ibrahim was against that. He was against all that. And one thing in Surah Ibrahim, the thing I wanted to mention is that if you find yourself by yourself, it's no big deal. If you find yourself giving khutbahs to the walls in a lot of cases, right? Then go and give it. If you're giving the right word, if you're doing what's right, forget about them bums. Let them hang out with them each other, right? Yeah. In other words, you're not going to frame your message to fit like they frame God's, they fix up everything like what they want, their heart. Whatever's in their heart, they fix it up, they frame it up, and then they say, this is what we want to do. Now, suppose you got the book right here. And the book is telling you, it's the Hidayah, right? And it's the guidance. And it's telling you who Allah is. Allah is one. And they talk about, Inna Allah yuhibbul ladhina yukatiluna fi sabilihi saffan ka'annahum bunyanun marsusun. Allah loves those that fight in his cause as though there was a solid cemented structure. So there's people that we know, our relatives, they say, God is love, right? And then they leave it there. The Quran said the same thing. But it says, yuhibbul ladhina yukatiluna fi sabilihi saffan ka'annahum bunyanun marsusun. Allah loves those. Then start describing what they act like, what they look like. Those who fight in his cause like they were a solid cemented structure. Sometimes you may have to go all by yourself. If that's the case, have a happy journey. Have a happy journey, because if you go the other way, well, we know what it's going to look like. Now, since we're dealing with Ibrahim, or Surah Ibrahim, this is about Musa alayhi salam. We sent Musa with our signs and the command, bring out the people from the depths of darkness into the light and teach them to remember the days of Allah. Verily in this are signs for such who are patient, constant, grateful, and appreciative. So this days of Allah, we have an Eid tomorrow. For us, that's one of our Yawm Allah. Our Yawm Allah is the days of Allah, certain special days. Now, when we went from Mecca to Medina, and they saw the Yahud practicing certain holidays, so they wanted to join them. The Prophet ﷺ, we have two special days, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, right? And so those are our Yawm Allah. Those are the days of Allah. Remember the days of Allah. And be thankful and be appreciative. I just want to remind us that in the days of Allah comes a lot of very sincere and worshipfulness and what have you. When the Prophet ﷺ migrated, no, when they conquered Mecca, and the people that had been causing the biggest trouble, they asked the Prophet, "O Rasulullah," this is the first time they called him Rasulullah. First they was calling him sham, a fake, a fraud, or you know what I mean, a miracle worker, a liar, you know what I'm saying, imposter. That's what they was calling him the day before. Now, "O Rasulullah, why, what you gonna do with us?" So the Prophet ﷺ said, "We're gonna do the same thing with you that Yusuf said to his brothers. First of all, in the Quran, it says about Yusuf and his brothers, "Let there be no reproach this day." If you see me fiddling around a lot, because I got up the other morning and I looked up and I couldn't see nothing, not regularly. I put on my glasses, still couldn't see nothing. Can't see nothing now. Well, I can see who y'all are because I know who you are. And the other day it was real bad. We were sitting out giving out food, and I said, "This guy here, I know him, and that's his father. I know his voice, but I couldn't see his face. Now I can see y'all's faces now, everything like that. So things is looking up." But I said, this mean old white man, here he goes, messing up my vision. I was just laying here minding my own business, and now I can't see. Of course, when I have stuff I don't like, you got to have your pet voodoo doll like. So mine is Boss Man. Here he is right here. You know where you want to blame everything. If you get bad luck, if you get anything, this is mine right here. Boss Man bites the dust. So initially, I'm automatically going to blame it all on Boss Man. Boss Man put something in the thing, because how can I go to sleep seeing everything, and then I get up and I can't see nothing. It's blurry everywhere. Then I put on my glasses, I can't see nothing there. And then I go to the eye doctor. I said, "The eye doctor, he's in on it too. He's working with the white man, I'm sure." And so he said, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I said, "It's their scheme, They hooked up this scheme so they want me to go blind." But there's another good part to it. You get fired up. You say, "Well, I'm 100 years old. What do I care about being blind? I done seen the pyramids of Egypt, all the 7 wonders of the world, all the Moshe Tunja, the Great Falls, Niagara Falls. Out of all that stuff that they write down, so I done seen that." And so when you see it, Machu Picchu built to the top of the mountain, I done been to all them, all over the world. So I just say in my mind, hey, I done already seen all that. So what you see in your mind is clear, right? Once you got it in your mind, they can't take that. You don't have to go see that again. And I'm just telling you about a little process. So I done already blamed it on Boss Man. This old Boss Man, he messed with my vision. So that's why I got stuff wrote so big you can see it across the room. But it's okay. Here's the thing. The next thing I said, I don't care nothing about no vision. Right? Because I done already seen everything. I just have to improve my memory. I know everything else is where I stay. And who cares about driving anyway? Although I've been driving, I still see everything like that. Ain't hit nothing yet. I'm just talking about the thought processes. So the first thing you do is you blame it on Boss Man. Boss Man, because Boss Man bites the dust. And I mean, you see cars, everything around here that's messed up. Boss Man did mess that up. You can't get in a car, it drives perfect, and then you get in it again, and then you can't, right? And this after about 30 or 40 years, you kind of get the idea that someone is messing with different things. What I'm talking about is adjustment. How are you going to adjust to those things? Suppose it was true. Now, only half of it is true. And I picked Boss Man because he deserved to be picked on, because he's been a bad character, right? And as far as Boss Man Bite the Dust and the ayats that go with it, it's a nice T-shirt. You know, downsize what they used to call, you know who, Boss Man. And just to stray off a little bit, when I was in the penitentiary up at McNeil Island, this is the first time I was in a federal joint, and I noticed that all the Negroes from the South, they could get anything from the guards that they want. Or they could get more than we could. Now, we come from state joints and all, California. You don't talk to the police is bad. But the Negroes from over here, they had tons of game. That's what they used to call the guards. Boss man, you think I can get a couple of extra cakes over there before I go out, boss man? You're giving the white man his proper, what it makes it, well, show, raggedy nigga, you could have just all you want is some cakes, and you giving me my props where I got the authority to say yes or no. And of course, you done referred to me by my proper attribute, boss man. I'm the boss. As long as you applying that to him, which is a low-level dummy, you know, but you saying to him, you have authority, you running this show. I'm just a lowly convict running around here. But boss man, you mind if I could do this? Now, all of us in California, yeah, man, I need so-and-so. What's going on with you? You know, talking to the police. We didn't get nothing, of course. And I watched the Negroes from the South. They'd been on chain gangs in those days. They'd been on all that. And when they referred to the people who was running things, it was different down here than it was out there. But they had a way of dealing with it where they got anything. So how they get anything they want? It was just simple. Boss man, that was as simple as it was. You let him know he's the boss. Boss man this, boss man that. They could get anything they want. Boss man, I got to take a little break and go run around the block or something, do whatever. Not around the block. But I want to be gone for what? Oh, Johnny, old nigga, you gone. You know I'm the boss. Right? That's the only thing, he's the boss. You let him know he's the boss. The same thing applies now. Challenge a dumb police in his authority. A dumb regular police. He'll shoot you on the spot, most of them, right? But if you let him know, boss man, you got a badge, you got a gun, and boss man, you's a good old white man. Or you's a good old coon, right? And you using that psych on him. That's one of the reasons we're still here now. All the stuff we do, we should have been dead 100 years ago. What we talk about, the Zionists, the American policy, all of that stuff, hey, talking about the room would be empty, the room would be locked up, packed up, and sent off somewhere else, right? But use a little psychology. Oh, boss man, you wouldn't hurt the brother, would you? This old Musa, you know he just talking. Boss man, you know that you the boss. even though he's losing everything he got, everybody's laughing at him. Oh, boss man, they just laughing because they jealous, boss man. Boss man lose everything, right? And then the Quran says that all of this stuff is going to slip up on him from places and ways that he don't have no knowledge of, right? And when he look up, it's all going to be gone. What more information, what more convincing do we need now, right? With every war they start, they lose, right? With every little shenanigans they try to run on people, they get caught. So when we say boss man bites the dust, that means that we should be sure about our Islam. And then when it says about our mission, go and see about Joseph and his brothers, and never give up hope of Allah's soothing mercy. For no one gives up hope of Allah's soothing mercy except those that have no faith. So it's saying, go and see about not only Yusuf, but his brothers, the Negro. It's good, be happy, loving and kind, but go see about Yusuf and his brother. And then with all the shenanigans that Yusuf and his brothers did, just like the prophet said, what you gonna do with us? And he says, I'm gonna do the same way that the prophet did his brothers. He said, La tatraba, no reproach this day. So all the Negroes, whether they sitting up there with all the big groups, whether they chopping at you, whether they shooting at you, whether they stealing, it don't make no difference. You don't become like them. La tatraba, no reproach this day, right? No reproach. There's no reproach to anybody. I don't care the Negroes in California. I don't care what they steal. I don't care what they, no reproach. We playing this game according to the rules we want to play, right? We changing the rules of psychological guerrilla warfare. That's our rule. That's what we doing. Then white folks have post-traumatic syndrome, right? We have post-traumatic growth. What's post-traumatic growth? That means every time something happens to you, you use it as a mechanism. You use it as a stepping stone, right? To expand, to get bigger, to grow. So we don't have PTSD, whatever they call it. That's what people get when they go to war. We've been in a long war here. It ain't nobody stayed above board as long as we have. From back in the late 60s to the 70s, all during that period, we was either here doing it, overseas doing it, or back here doing it, then coming into Islam in the mid-late 70s, right to Islam, not who is the original man, Asiatic black man, the maker home, the cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, God of the universe, not that. You know, that's so crazy, I'm not going to change the subject, that they may not even get punished because it's so stupid. Who is the original man? The Asiatic black man, the student enrollment. The maker, the niggas made the world. The maker, the owner. Cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, and God of the universe. That's so insane that they may not even, Allah said, I may punish niggas, that stuff is so stupid, you know. I mean, just think, it's so ridiculous. Who is the original man? Why, it's the Asiatic black man. He's the maker. He's the owner. He's the maker. Al-Khaliq, that's what they're saying. He owns all of this. Cream of the planet Earth. Anything happen, he float to the top. Cream. God of the universe, father of civilization. He don't make toilet paper. He don't do nothing like that, but he is I'm telling you. So to get through that and to get to where we are now, that's what we call post-traumatic growth. That we went through all of that stuff that we lived through, and we ain't shell-shocked and all that. I mean, just because first thing you figure the police messing with my sight. So that ain't paranoia. That's just good, healthy thinking, because everybody did everything else. So you put him first about it. No, post-traumatic growth is that when you use everything that's been used against you as an avenue, as an elevator, right, to push you up, to make you grow, to make you develop. Whether it's in patience, you learn superior patience. Why? Because the process that you've gone through with the system. The system, suppose you used to speaking to hundreds of people, thousands of people, then you're speaking to us, a few people, you're just happy as you can be. Why? Look at all the nice people here. I'd rather be here than over some of these other places. With all the stuff that's going on in the world, they never even mention Zionism. They never even mention the brothers who are being murdered and killed in Yemen. They don't mention them. At the end of the prayer, they don't make dua for them or nothing. They don't do that. They don't mention them in the khutbah. They don't make dua for them. They don't do none of that. So who would want to be sitting up in the masjid with them anyway? It's better to be by yourself. That's the great Inna Ibrahim kana umatan qanitan lillahi wa lam yakun min al mushrikeen. Ibrahim was a ummah by himself. That don't mean you're happy to be by yourself, but you don't mind. You don't mind. It's not a problem. Other people, they don't like me. I don't know people, they ain't that. And then Allah give you the facilities and the methods and the processes to do all the things that are good and healthy for you. So, it says it's better to give than to receive, right? Or the upper hand is better than the lower hand. The one that gives is better. Okay, if you think it don't work, go down there and prepare some food and go out and give it to people and see how good you feel. Yeah. It feels better to go out and give people food than it does to go out with boxes and they put money in the box. Ask it to the brothers. It feels better. At least everybody pretending like it feels better. But for me, I'm telling you, it feels better. It's better to give than to receive. Right? Why? Not only are you following Quran, but you're following the Sunnah also. So if they have a program over in Baltimore and we go over and we say, well, we just serve a little food for y'all. Them people get so mad. This was last month. They get so mad that they send a guy with a halal store. Y'all remember we there serving the food? Let me help. No, it's okay. So he even got a little team with him. What he want to do is everybody that's coming to that program is from his tribe. And they used his halal store and this, that. So if we are there passing out food, good food, big old quarter chickens, all of that, everybody that jumped, what? They give it, it don't cost nothing? And they hop in line, in a hurry. So that they won't see us in that light, because when they see Negroes, the picture they didn't paint it, they always begging, they always asking for something, they're not irresponsible. But here you are, helping, and the next day, we big breakfast and everything, and we go around now, and we do it all the time. Why? Because not only is it better to give than to receive, But people at one joint right over here, I ain't gonna say where it was, but you could throw a rock at it right over there, right over near PGMA almost. It looks like PGMA. Here come a Negro, not an American Negro, African Negro. Imam Musa, that's wrong what you're doing. You know, we've had the people coming out of Jum'ah. So the other Africans there, they in line. And the lady hold on their head. They're ashamed because they from the same place. And the lady looks around and said, they're giving the food away. They're not, you can't give them anything. They're not, like we don't have no box. And we don't, we're not letting nobody. We ain't hustling today. We giving today. They look and they say, the guy is so used to people playing them kind of games that he's treating us like that. We was over at the big joint out there in Virginia. And I'm reciting ayat. Subhanallah the asra bi abdihi laylan min al masjid al haram ila al masjid al aqsa. On and on. So the brother remembered this guy didn't call the police already. And then one of the guys, one of the regional brothers, that means it's from India or Pakistan, he comes out and says, what did he say? That was not pornographic language, but it was profanity. Now, this is just a couple of months ago when the police is shooting all Negroes, and they didn't call the Virginia police, And he comes out, he has to be the dumbest man in the world because the ayat that I'm reciting, he says that's profanity. I didn't cuss him out and tell him he was the stupidest man in the world, which I was kind of thinking that a little bit. So that's the dumbest man in the world. You don't read, of course he don't read the Quran. How could he be out harassing me if he reading the Quran and understanding it? Anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is, believers, don't worry about stuff here. Don't worry about this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Hey, you buckle on to this Islam and you institute Islam, and Allah is going to be your hands, your feet. He's going to take you where you need to go, and Allah going to be your eyes. Allah going to look out for you. And anything Allah allow to happen to you is for your growth. Post-traumatic growth, that's what we're talking about. Post-traumatic growth is instead of getting shell-shocked and getting scared when something happened, right? Post-traumatic syndrome, whatever they call it. Post-traumatic growth, that means that every incident that you have along the way causes you to evolve, causes you to elevate, and causes you to get bigger. That's post-traumatic growth. That's what our community is involved in. That's why everything, it ain't nothing the system can do. The Zionists and all of them, I'm telling you, there's nothing that they can do. Why? Because we're following the Quran and the Sunnah. And we're following a historical pattern. I know I've explained it before. You have the Quran. The Quran tells you traveling the earth. We have the Hadith, of course, which explains it. Then traveling the earth and see what was the end of those before you. History, right? So we have the Quran. We have the Hadith, right? We have the historical process, rise and fall of empires. Then we have our own experience. We're using our experience and what Allah gave us right here in the midst of Zionist-inspired America. And we don't care nothing about them. And all the stuff that happened, you just look at it like it ain't nothing. It ain't nothing, right? Look at everybody else. hey, they getting paranoid. Look at all the brothers my age, the dear Imams. Some guys are so scared. I mean, they scared they shout, boo, hey, what? You know, they jumping all over everything. I'm telling you. Not that I know them, but I do know them. Something happened to them. And when you sell your soul and yourself for this system, the system gonna get up and walk away from you and leave you all alone like it do everybody else. Let me get back to the subject. Post-traumatic growth. Yusuf and his brothers. Ayats of Allah, signs of Allah. The other thing I want to mention before leaving is contentment. You know the hadith that we always read about contentment. There's no better thing that Allah have given a servant than contentment. You know, and if you use this world and you apply the process of leisure, working in the cause of Allah, you adopt it as a hobby, as fun, as leisure, like, then Allah gonna give you contentment. And when you get contentment, you're gonna be full of everything that you need and more in this world. But if you don't do that, the hadith says, you'll be working from now on and you still gonna be poor. That's what it means. Why? Because I need this, I need that, right? But if you do it the other way around, it's like going out and helping people. You help people, it feels better. Okay. One of the last things I want to mention as part of our mission, archivist, chronicler, documentalist, and historian. If you look at, these are things that are very important to archive all of what we've been dealing with. That's why it's very repetitive. We might give the same talk for 100 times. It's basically the same. Why? To archive day by day, systematic, what's going on here in America. And then do it, and it's all right. It ain't nothing happening, right? So, remember some of the stuff we read here. Some of our brothers, African Americans, are so sad because they're not accepted and they're not loved and looked after here in America. It's because they're not doing their job. That's all. I'm not saying we're better than anybody else, but what we read in the Quran, we read in the Hadith, and we understand from the ulama and other learned people that this is the way to go, that's where we're headed. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is the book, or that's the book. In it is guidance, sure, without doubt. If we read it in the book, it's all right. And that's what we're going to do. It doesn't make any difference what they do. It doesn't make any difference if you have to be by yourself. You know, the people committing suicide because they're lonely. They're lonely. And they got a following of 1 million people. Half the people in Hollywood got to tweet up their name or something, right? There they are. And they're lonesome. They're lonesome. Right? They have everything in the world physically, and they don't know what to do. Why? Because they're not locked in. We have a chance. That's what we're calling everybody to. We're calling everybody to the Quran and the Sunnah. And if you practice this service, and I'll close with this. You know, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was asked if he wanted to be a king, messenger, or a servant, messenger, right? A king messenger, Dawood, Suleiman, they were kings. They were prophets and servants of God, but they administered power and authority, right? He said, I want to be a servant, a messenger, although he wound up having more authority than all of them. But he wanted to be a servant, right? And we have found that this attitude is the most helpful attitude for guidance, for inspiration, and for reality. You may not have been through it, but we've been through a little bit of it. All that money, all that wealth, and all that power, and people not satisfied. People not happy. You see what I mean? People not convinced that what they're doing is right, you know. So, let me see. Maybe I got one or two more things. If not, oh yeah, we might as well mention tomorrow. The best, what we would is tomorrow we'll be having Eid, and we'll be having our prayer around 11, and we do that because we go out, you know. So it'll be at the end of everybody else's instead of at the beginning. So we'll have our regular food and what have you here, and we hope it reaches the quality level, not only in quality but in proportion. So that would be tomorrow, and we wish everybody Eid Mubarak. And the last thing is that day is centered around sacrifice. The sacrifice. And remember, we were dealing with Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Ibrahim had a very serious life, and then getting close to the end of that, what he thought, he has a son. Now the commentary says he was 86, so that means when he was 100, his son would be not Isaac, but Ismail, would be 14. It's kind of like the age of serious work. That's what the Quran refers. And then Allah asks him to sacrifice his greatest reality. That's his son. All his dreams, everything. He's a prophet. This guy gonna be all right too, and I'm gonna fill him up with everything Allah gave him. So Allah says sacrifice. He didn't jump all around and said maybe he meant just play like sacrificing. You know what I mean? How we do when we ask to do something we don't want to do. Or your internal self says, hey, it's best to do it this way. Then your other old lying self comes and said, which is the shaitan, of course. Don't have to worry about that. Do it this way, do it that way. So that's why he's throwing rocks at the shaitan. Right? When you go, yeah. So this is the message he's getting. But you find Ibrahim and his son both willing to hear and praise Allah. Ismail, the one that hears Allah or listens to Allah, right? Sami hears, Ismail hears Allah. They both hear Allah. And what does he say? You do exactly what Allah told you to do. And think about us. What is our Ismail? What are we holding on to? Is it our PhD? Maybe our job. Maybe you work downtown with boss man and he pats you on the back every other week. It makes you feel good. And you wouldn't want to make boss man mad, right? So you put up with all of that stuff. You might know it's wrong, But you put up with that. And then you worked all that time for your PhD, your master's degree, you suffered and you all right. And so your master's degree could be your Ismail. Your PhD could be your cab, whatever it is you're driving. It could be your family, wives, children, all of that. This is a question we have to have. What is I, Ismail? Right? What's my Ismail? What is it that you are willing or not willing to put on the line for the cause of Allah? Do you hear Allah when Allah sends out the message to you? Right? Does it come in clear, or have you thrown out some internal static so that the message, I couldn't quite pick that up, right? Because of static. You know where the radio be static and they on the station? So, we got some internal static. We throw that out. I didn't hear that right. I didn't hear it real clear. I didn't get it. It said sacrifice, give to the poor, face the challenge, love Allah, sacrifice for his cause, struggle in the cause of Allah. I don't hear all that quite. I don't get it quite right. That's what we do sometimes. In fact, that's what you go around. Everybody's doing that. But the message is still clear. There's no static in it. They're throwing up internal static. Maybe it's the clothes that they're wearing, the wool or something, touching something, putting static in there. They can't hear it. Maybe it's the stuff they got on. Maybe it's the stuff they got in their brain where they can't hear and they can't see. O Allah, we seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief. We seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness. We seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardliness. We seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. O Allah, suffice us with what is lawful. Keep from us what is prohibited. With thy grace, make us free from want of what is besides thee. Ameen. Iqamat salat. No, I'm going to just get a chair.